Good morning, my loves. Welcome back. We are going to continue our Composite series, and today I want to talk about Mercury through the Composite house. What does Mercury mean in a composite chart, and what does it mean in house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12? You get the idea. So we'll talk about all of it, but before we start, let's talk about Mercury in general in a composite chart. When we see Mercury in a composite chart, we are told what the quality and the manner of the communication is like. Also, it tells us a lot about the way we affect each other's thinking and the way we think as a couple. The way we approach life from an intellectual perspective as a couple. Now, depending on the house area, all of this will manifest in different ways and even different areas. So let's dive right in with house 1. Mercury in the first house is generally a very intellectual couple. They approach life from a very left brain perspective, and of course depending on what's going on in the first house otherwise, right? Like if you have the moon there, or planets that affect you in a more emotional way. But generally speaking, the first house couple is a couple that is more intellectual. Also the way they, not just the way they approach life, but also the way they communicate with people, how people perceive them as a couple, right? They are seen as that more intellectual couple. Now, when it comes to the second house, this can go in two different ways. Mercury in the second house can make the couple think a lot about possessions and belongings and valuables, but also their values in life. There's a lot of communication about that. There's a focus on that. The other thing that could happen here is that a focus is very much on valuing things of the mind. So valuing the intellect, valuing straightforward thinking. This is generally, or that can be, a couple that really doesn't like overly emotional pursuits. So if the former is the case, this couple often spends a lot of time thinking about their home, their belongings, acquiring more of it. How do we do this? There's this intellectual and also logical approach of like, how do we acquire more? If the later is the case, then the focus is more on owning things that help the intellect, right? Like this could be the couple that has a library at home, or if it's not a library, many books. Also music instruments or music in general, right? You might think, well, music is more artsy. Yes, but when we have this couple, the second house couple, music, playing the piano is also a form of the intellect, right? Because it takes something up here to play the piano. Well, you might say for some people it just flows out of them. That's true, but generally you have to learn to play the piano or the guitar, and that takes your mind, because you need to learn the notes and different chords so you can then play a song. So with this couple, we also, like with every other couple, we have to look at the natal chart. What's Mercury saying in the natal chart? Where is Mercury in the natal chart? What aspects does Mercury have in the natal chart? And that gives us a deeper understanding of the meaning of the house position of Mercury. Now, Mercury in the third house is a Mercury that values the the exchange of opinions. Communication is big here. Communication with each other, but also communication with the people around us. Our social circle is really important here. That it's really important that we have a social circle that we can have conversations with. Now, this could be the academic couple, but this could also be the socialite kind of couple, right? That just likes to be out and about and have the small talk, because the third house is not necessarily an intellectual house, but it is a house of exchanging ideas. And these ideas could be rather trivial, but also on the more intellectual side. So what we really need here is kind of both. We need to make sure that we are not just on one end of the spectrum when we have Mercury in the third house. It is important to keep, because we are in the area of Gemini, so we are having the twins here, and we really want to keep the balance and not sway to either side. Again, you have to look at what your natal Mercury is saying. Now, Mercury in the fourth house is a Mercury that is able to talk about the more emotional things in life. It's a Mercury that likes to talk about emotions in general. And it is also a Mercury that likes to make the home an intellectually stimulating place. Again, this is also Mercury that likes to have a lot of books around, or things that stimulate the mind, inviting people over to have stimulating conversations. There are also generally stimulating conversations going on between the couple in the home. A lot of the focus is the home when it comes to how we approach life. So for us, it will be, if we have Mercury in the fourth house, it will be important that the home is a place where we actually bring out our mercurial side. So this could also mean that craft and our hobbies is something that we do in the home. Playing chess, for example, could be one thing. The only thing that we have to be careful here is not over-analyzing anything, our emotions specifically. Over-analyzing things here can really go the other direction and make our home not a safe place, because when we come home, we want to leave the world outside and we want to feel safe. And sometimes when we overstimulate that left brain, the home can just become a really tense place with Mercury in the fourth house. Now, Mercury in the fifth house is a placement that really enjoys talking, loves talking. Talking is a passion of this couple, together, again, and with others. Also, it can be there can be a lot of playfulness in the conversation, right? Again, this is not a couple that is overly intellectual, but more playful with words. Really good with words, actually. And there is this beautiful play with words. And it will also never be boring. We go for dinner, we go there, we go here, we can be at home. We will always have this playful interaction when it comes to our communication. The other thing with the fifth house, it's the house of children. So if you have children, make sure you're not focusing too much on their intellectual development, because we can have helicopter parents here. We can also have the parents that really want their children to go to Harvard, or to have they have big aspirations for their children. Keep in mind that your child already comes in with a predisposition, what I call the soul. So there's already something present, and you want to nurture that, and you want to bring that out more in the child, and you don't want to just put your own ideas in there of what you would like the child to be or to become. Now, the sixth house Mercury couple is a couple that focuses a lot on analyzing the relationship and how in terms of how we can make it better. And this can be very helpful, but this can also take away from, especially if this is a romantic relationship, from the emotional and romantic part, because we can overanalyze our relationship and constantly just focusing on improving that relationship. The focus on improving the relationship is big here, and again, you got to be careful that you keep the balance between, you know, nitpicking the relationship apart and keeping it light. So this is generally not a light placement for Mercury. It is a more really mental, brainy focused placement. And when we have that in relationships, you know, the lightness can sometimes be overpowered by that mental, analytical mind that wants to say, oh, look, we didn't do this right or that right, or look, you didn't do the bed correctly, or you just, you know, there's a lot of nitpicking here. So you got to keep that in mind when you have Mercury in the 6th house. Now, Mercury in the 7th house is Mercury that plays, again, a more important role. Like when we are in house 1, 4, 7, and 10, every planet is more highlighted. It's an annular house, so the planet plays a bigger role. Now, Mercury here, this could be a couple that possibly goes on an intellectual endeavor together, making a movie together, making a documentary together, or writing a book together. It's like the couple has one mind. Similar to the 1st house, but in the 1st house, it is more just like an approach. In the 7th house, it's actually a lifestyle. Like I said, we think as one, so, you know, we also tackle life as one, and that can relate to the way we work, but also general, just the way we live together. It is a beautiful placement. The only thing you have to keep in mind here that you don't lose yourself. With every planet in the 7th house, there's always the possibility that you lose your individuality to a certain degree. And that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing if you really are into being a couple and being one, being that unit, being like a divine union almost, I want to say. But if you are not that type of person, if you like to have more freedom, meaning do more things on your own, there can be headbutting with this placement. Now, Mercury in the 8th house is very intense Mercury. It's a Mercury that goes deep, and this couple really gets to know each other on a deeper level. They will really share their deeper, darker emotions, or the opposite can also be the case here, that it can get really deep, but we will block, we will be scared. This really depends on where you are at when it comes to your own inner journey, right? Your own inner work. How far have you gone with it? And how far have you gone in terms of trust? Because trust is a big topic in the 8th house. Also obsession, obsessing over things. And when that relates to mercurial things, like, you know, the mental plane, we can obsess over the other's inner work too much, right? We need to remember that they are still their own individual and they have to do their own inner work. You will not be able to do their inner work for them. They will still have to do their own inner work. But generally, this is a beautiful placement for a couple where both are very conscious already and oriented in terms of growth internally, and then obviously also externally. Now, Mercury in the 9th house is a very, very intellectual Mercury. Together with the 11th house, probably the most intellectual Mercury we can have in a composite chart. And this is also a couple that likes to continue education. This is a couple that will constantly study. If they don't study in university, they might even be professors in a university. They might even have met that way. They probably, I mean, I wouldn't want to say they probably met in an intellectual environment, but it is very likely that is the case. But also, it is a couple that likes to talk about God and the world. And they like to do that with each other, but also with others. And yeah, education is a big one here. So if they don't work in a university in some shape or form, they probably continuously try to improve themselves through courses, online courses, evening school, or what is it called? Is it evening school? Whatever it's called. But also books, big one here. Intellectual, a couple that probably has a library at home. It's also a couple that likes to travel together. But their travels are going to be generally focused on the intellect again, so going to museums, educating yourself while you're traveling is going to be a big one. Now, the 10th house Mercury couple is a couple that truly came together for purpose. And that purpose can come in all different shapes, forms, and sizes. It could mean that you have a business together. It could mean that one supports the other in a business, and that business is still your common goal. It shows that through reason, logic, and communication, you two will achieve your maximum goal. You will achieve what you came to achieve together. But again, it will be not an emotional, I mean, it can still be an emotional connection, but since this is the 10th house, the highest point in the chart, the purpose, the reason we came together is based more on the left brain and achieving something of value in terms of value, using our logical, intellectual capacities. So, if we have a business together, we are putting a lot of communication and mental focus into that business as a couple. That could mean we both work in this business, but it could also mean that one of them is supporting the other in different capacities, right? Like one is at home, taking care of the children, making sure everything is running smoothly in this area. So the other one is free to push forward in that area. This is usually a very successful couple. In business, but also in the way they communicate with each other. They are able to talk through things. There's still obviously an emotional connection here if this is a romantic relationship, but they can get through things, through emotional turmoil better if they use their mental capacity, because their mental capacity is very strong. Mercury in the 10th house, very strong Mercury. Now, Mercury in the 11th house is again a very intellectual Mercury, but it's also a Mercury that is very focused on trying to make the world a better place, talking about it, communicating about it, thinking about it together as a couple. So also when it comes to friendships, friendships are approached from a very intellectual place. So you probably have a lot of friends where you share those ideas, the ideas that you have for a better world will be something that brings you together. But also you will choose your friends specifically in that way. Doesn't mean you won't have emotional bonds with your friends, but the intellectual bond will be the stronger one. Now, Mercury in the 12th house is a Mercury that is generally, Mercury in the 12th house is a little confused. And that can only be helped through making this Mercury focus on the spiritual side of the relationship. Now, this can mean that your communication in your relationship and the way you think is very spiritual focused. It's an important part, but also psychology, like the psychological analysis can be very big here with this with this couple. So you will talk about these areas more. It is not a super intellectual approach here. We're not highly academic in this area. So there needs to be an openness for possibility, for not just reality, but also other realities. You know, what can we do with this relationship? How far can we bring it? How can we open it up in different ways? This is a couple that might take an unusual approach to relationship. This relationship might look not like your regular relationship. Again, this can come in different forms, shapes, and sizes. This might be an open relationship, but also the opposite, right? This could be a relationship that is super romantic and super spiritual, where this couple does everything with each other, spends all their time together, but that time is not necessarily 9 to 5 kind of idea. Sometimes to the outside, you can seem like a very secretive couple. No one really knows what's going on there. This is like this couple, they are very intriguing, but what's going on there? Like, what's going on with them? But you work out your issues usually internally, in your own way. And like I said earlier, most likely in a very spiritual, but also psychology focused manner. And it's almost like a couple that has therapy with each other. It's also a couple that might go to therapy to work out their issues. Of course, every couple can do that, but this is a couple that is very intentional about that. You know, their issues, we're very clear, we can't do this on our own. Let's go to someone that can help us. They are very forward moving when it comes to this. They don't like to let things linger. They like to approach them in a not intellectual, but in a very intentional way. So that was Mercury through the 12 composite houses. If you like this video, give it a like down there. And please follow my channel for more videos about astrology. I see you in the next video.